My name is Siobhan Wilkes. I'm your National Vice President for Special Projects, and I have with me...
Oh, yes, I'm Sammy Kinnison. I am a chapter visitation assistant. Today, we're going to be going through creativity and diversity in programming and service. Because we have two hosts, we're co-hosting this workshop, so to speak. Feel free to throw questions in the chat. When one of us is speaking, the other one will probably be able to respond right away. So feel free to interrupt with the chat throughout the whole thing. Don't just feel like you have to save your questions to the end. I think that's about it.
Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen so everybody can see we have a little deck for this presentation. Looking at our workshop today, of course, we're talking about creativity and diversity in your programming and service. And the first question that you want to think is, really, why should we diversify? And when we say diversify, it's talking about the way to kind of mix up the service that you provide so that you're creating the best impact with the best mix of service, for lack of a better phrase, that you could for your community. It helps to prevent boredom and complacency within your members and even within your target audience. It creates excitement for you all. It connects your chapter members to new ideas, people, and organizations, especially if you're trying a new service project for your chapter or for your bands, collaborating with another organization, or even hosting a women in music speaker with a new speaker. So you're meeting new people in that way as well. It exposes your chapter to new ways to represent the ideals of Tau Beta Sigma. When I was a chapter president, we were doing all the things, we were checking off all the boxes per se, but I thought, what service can we do differently? And I went to our preamble and our purposes and our mission statement to find new ways to do activities and new diverse service that we can provide. So it exposes your chapter to new ways that you could provide services through our ideals. And then it allows your programming and service to change with the strengths and the membership of your chapter, as well as the needs of your band program. Because I know that your band is not the same band that you joined 4 years ago or 2 years ago, or even myself, my band that I was in college is not the same now as it was when I was an active member 10 years ago. So definitely finding ways to diversify and change your services is definitely something that each chapter should keep part of their normal yearly thing.
The next kind of element of things we want to talk about and discuss is really taking a pulse check. Before you start to go crazy into what are the things that we can do to make things different and change, check in with yourselves and check in with your chapter. Are you guys following all of the rules and requirements that your school puts on, that your band or director or sponsor has of you? Are you turning in your national paperwork on time? Schools that are not turning in paperwork on time, that is a huge thing that you guys should be focusing on and figuring out how can you address that. As you start to expand into other programs, maybe you're wanting to shake things up, have you looked to the national programs? Are you completing those well? Are you getting all of your stripes and liner pieces for the Focus on 5? Are you really filling the needs that are obvious and the ones that have been asked of you? I don't know that any band director is going to be impressed if they've asked you to fill this specific need and you say, well, no, but instead we're going to go do this other big project over here. So really take a time to just evaluate where you're at as a chapter and see, make sure your house is in order before you try to make things real, take it to the next level.
So as you're evaluating it, it gives you an opportunity to kind of reflect and investigate on your services that you provide to your community. As a chapter, reflect on your current practices and your projects, even what Sammy was just talking about, again, that checking all the boxes. Are you turning in your paperwork on time? Are you fulfilling the immediate needs of your band? And kind of seeing if your current, kind of reflecting on what you're currently doing based on, that evaluation as well. And as you're doing it, do kind of an informal audit of any traditional or annual programs or projects your chapter already does and determine if they are still useful, helpful, relevant, and achieving the desired outcome that you want. I remember when I was an active member, Erica Pope, she was my district counselor, and she said, tradition is a lack of a better way of doing things. And so looking at your programs, if there's something that's traditional or an annual program that your chapter is already doing that isn't having the desired income that it may have had the first time it was done 20 years ago, you definitely have an opportunity to kind of investigate and evaluate if it's something you want to continue to have a part of your repertoire. And even as you're reflecting and investigating, looking at old fall activity report or chapter summary reports is a great way for your chapter to even see the projects a little bit more in detail that you may have done in the past or even the last year, and see if those are something that, that audit of your activities to see if those are something that you still want to have as part of what your chapter does each year.
In kind of the vein of doing an audit of your chapter, not only do you want to audit the projects and services that you guys have provided, but also take in mind the audit of your chapter. Are there limitations that your chapter has now? Maybe you guys completed a large project in the past and it's been something that's ongoing, but your chapter's a little bit smaller now, and it may not be as feasible as funding resources. Is there financial resources to consider as projects that you guys have had going on? Just taking in mind to ask yourself, how has your chapter changed? And is there something you can do to accommodate more or different service? Sometimes it is just looking at how an activity might be able to be taken to the next level. Is there something more you can do to help really engage in a either more involved activity, or maybe it's a less involved activity? Just a couple things to consider.
Yeah, I like how has your chapter changed in a way to accommodate more service too. Like if you bought on a new membership class, you now have the bodies to be able to execute that huge project that you've wanted to do all these years or get involved with that activity on campus. So it definitely gives you an opportunity to kind of, as you're considering those, what your demographics and what your chapter looks like, how can you use your members to the best, to the fullest, to be able to kind of do great and more diverse service for your bands. Okay, so you've done a little bit of an informal audit. You've taken a look at some of your activities that you already have kind of on your plate, and then you have an opportunity to continue to brainstorm. Looking at what areas of need your band in your band that you feel the chapter can better address. If your chapter is maybe heavy on the service of like physical service, but you may have an opportunity to help build up some more relationships or leadership development within your band. You definitely could, evaluate if you're giving enough in all the right places, if that makes sense, doing all the right things for your band too. Do you feel that your chapter has the resources, again, the things to consider, financial, the number of volunteers to do it, to add additional service? And if not, then you have to think about what can you exclude to ensure that new and improved programs for your service can be implemented. And then also that helps with, if you find yourself in a place where you're stretched for finances within your chapter, or you don't have a number of people to do an activity, it opens up a window to maybe collaborating with other organizations to complete something, or even the idea of, like this slide says, doing the right things so that you're not stretching your chapter too thin and creating active burnout and all of that stuff. So definitely something to think about as you're looking at new ideas. And then even with the ideas, can you commit to taking the steps to consider changing your service in the coming academic year? I think this time right now is a great opportunity for chapters to really think about and evaluate the projects that you've done, especially looking at your normal fall band service. What have you done? What processes may seem a little cumbersome that you could look into updating next year? And then, continue to evaluate, investigate, reflect, and consider different things that are happening within your chapter and your community to really help you to develop new programs for your chapter.
I think one thing to consider in all of this as you brainstorm is, I personally find it very helpful to come up with a large amount of ideas so that then you can really narrow it down and pick what are the best ones. I think somewhere I heard, and maybe this is a made up statistic, that about 10% of your ideas are good ones. And if you come up with 10 ideas, that might be one idea that's really good. But if you came up with 100 ideas, you might have 10 really good ones. And so I think kind of as we go through a lot of this, these are different lenses you can take to gather a lot of ideas, gather a lot of options for things that you can do, and then you can see what is, you know, most feasible for your chapter. So this is these are a couple of different options for some data collection, as well as the next couple slides. Survey your chapter members for ideas. I think that we invite people to be members of Tau Beta Sigma because we see something really special in them and everybody has something to offer. So ask your members, what kind of service project do you think would be great to add in? Each person has a unique background. Maybe they had a service project that somebody did at their high school band booster club that could be applicable to your band. Take time to not just in chapter ask everybody to raise their hand, but even finding ways to get some of your quieter members, people who may not be willing to speak up in front of others, to have an opportunity to share. Ask your band director, your sponsor, or your music staff. Are there things that they've seen? Are there old projects that have happened that have gone by the wayside? Maybe they remember and it was really helpful. Finding ways to assist, new ways to assist with old tasks. And trying to find ways to reach out to other bands on your campus. Maybe you guys only work with your marching band and you are wanting to, you know, add more service and expand. Maybe there's an orchestra on your campus or choir or different things like that within the music department to kind of amplify once you hit that base level. And then lastly, maybe find ways to survey your band. Create a suggestion box or something like that, asking, is there something that people could see a benefit to? Think back to when you were a freshman and you first walked into your band program. What would have been really great to have had? Is there something that you can do to fill needs that maybe you felt and haven't necessarily been met? These are just a couple of ways that you can kind of collect ideas from others. Gonna pass it back to Siobhan for some more.
Sorry, as I struggle to unmute myself, I'm becoming a Zoom statistic right now. And so I work in the field of data analytics. And so the idea of collecting data is something that really excites me. How can we get information from people and to better kind of help you build ideas? And like Sammy said, 100 ideas, you'll have 10 that are great. And that's a great way to start. I also, when thinking about going and finding new ideas, reaching outside of your organization and reaching out to other organizations that you have no connection to and inviting them to collaborate on a project that involves music or service. And in the Western District, there was a chapter that says they invited, another Greek organization to come do their Coda project with them. And the members that participated had so much more pride in what they're doing to really showcase what Tau Beta Sigma does. And because, on Soapbox, our national programs and the fact that serving college bands is our philanthropy per se is what makes us unique. And so we definitely, as you're getting some more information, you have the opportunity to collaborate with other organizations to, showcase music and what we're doing. And then reaching out to even other chapters around the country and exchange ideas to collaborate. Your national program guides are a great place for new ideas. Even the chapter operations handbook, it has a quite extensive list of different service projects or fundraisers that you could do. And then even reaching out to your district officers, looking at district websites, because many of them have databases of service projects and national program ideas, fundraisers, and all of that you could reach into. I always say that the biggest resource that we have as an organization are our members. And so definitely collaborating with other chapters is something that I highly recommend when you're thinking of new ideas or even of a way to do this idea a little bit different.
And then to just kind of go back to the foundation, these are some questions to just think about. What are the basic needs of your band members? As you're coming up with your list of 100 ideas of what can you do, are people thirsty? Are they hot? Are they cold? Do they need a poncho from the rain? Like, what are basic needs? Do they need to feel connected and like they belong? What can your chapter do to help promote the 5 purposes and ideals? I don't know how often people do this, but I really enjoy going back and actually reading as if I have fresh eyes, the 5 purposes of TBS and finding new ways that we can engage that. It's a fun, just kind of brainstorming exercise for yourself to say, underneath each category, what could you do to further that purpose? What can you do to honor outstanding bands people? What can you do to help develop worthwhile projects? All of those things. And then what are the basic needs of your chapter? I think sometimes we might undervalue the service that we can do to each other, or we forget about that providing ways to check in on each other and make sure that we are taking care of ourselves is also a form of service that we can do as a chapter.
I wanted to stay on this topic for just a second. I want to take some just comments from the audience here. I'm actually going to stop sharing the screen. Some comments from the audience here. What do you all see as the basic needs of your band? Go ahead and unmute yourself and say whatever. There's no wrong answer.
Okay. Hi, everybody. Naja Blackwood, Theta Zeta. I think one of the main things that we need from our band, that like our band needs, is like women empowerment, because there's not that many women in the band and there's not that many women on staff or anything. It's just, other than like our dance line instructors, like they're all men, and the men overpower like the women by like extreme numbers. So I think like that's one of our like main like things that we like try to like tailor towards. That's why we do like a big sister little sister program, like so they know that they're not alone and that we can support them. But I think that's one of like our biggest like issues.
Nice, I like it. It hits the mission statement of Tau Beta Sigma too. Anybody else?
Kurt from the Road Chapter of Bethune-Cookman University. I would say some basic needs for band members, just from my experience, just coming into band as a freshman, is making sure that you not only make incoming band members feel welcome, but you help them develop in the band. That can come from developing close relationships with band members as a chapter, and also having things and events to help them develop as people. Like we also have our mentoring program, our Big Sister Little Sister program, but we focus on women, but I feel like there should be focus on, you know, the band as a whole when it comes to certain events. Like we have our Women in Music, you know, it might be cool one day to have a male come also as a guest speaker to that event, just to show everyone that we're still diverse, but we still can focus on our main focuses and helping everyone out.
Mm-hmm. And I like the idea of having a male come and do work, like maybe if you do a panel discussion for your Women in Music speaker event, it's a good opportunity to talk, for them to even talk about how to be an advocate for women in music, and overall like talk about leadership and development as well. And so I like that. And so another question, what are some basic needs of your chapter? And I think that can go like, again, those purposes like leadership, like friendship, rest, fun, all of those cool things.
I know for us, hi everyone. My name is Corey. I'm with the Epsilon Sigma chapter at Norfolk State University in Norfolk, Virginia. I know what we do, we're very big on grades. So some days, like, or even before events, if we have an event scheduled to start at 7, we're like, all right, guys, the event starts at 7. We'll start setting up at 6:30. We can meet in our location for about an hour, and we'll just sit and work on homework so that we make sure we get our work done before the event actually starts. So that's not, stressing anybody, and they can actually be present in the moment.
Yeah, I like that. And actually because you're first and foremost college students. So if you're not able to handle that foundation of that level of being in school, like of part Tau Beta Sigma as a student, then everything else kind of falls down. I can just see like grades are bad is like the beginning point of a terrible semester. So I like that y'all, prioritize making sure that you'll have that educational development for your chapter too. All right, and so I'm going to go back to our our little deck here. Thank you for answering my questions. So as also when you're looking at ways to find new activities for your chapter, you have the opportunity to kind of expand outside of your four walls, looking at what ways you can serve the bands in your community. Shameless plug again, going and using those national programs. The purpose of the national programs, and even part of our mission, is to serve our community through music. And so how can you serve your community and other bands in your area? How can you promote the ideals outside of your band program again? And then what opportunities does your chapter have to serve on the district level, either hosting a district convention or workshop or precinct meeting, or even having, encouraging your members of your chapter to run for district offices, and even looking at expansion out more services that you can kind of diversify your mix of service in your portfolio. What can you do to serve on the national level as well? I think a great way is continuing to be involved in activities like this, and then also working with Focus on 5 and the other different activities that we have going on nationally.
All right, so we are going to do a little bit of a group activity here. The goal of this is to come up with as many service activities as possible. We're going to give you guys 3 minutes in breakout rooms. Some of the criteria is that it must involve music of some kind. It should align with our 5 purposes. Feel free to pull up the website and go look at our 5 purposes just to help give you guys some ideas. And it must involve most or the whole chapter to participate. We're not necessarily looking for any solo acts here, but what can you do that involves most of your chapter, aligns with the 5 purposes, and is service to your bands or community that's involving music?
Oh,
can we do a group 1?
Yeah. Group 1.
How many ideas and maybe some of the favorites? And
yeah, so a lot of the things we had were close to around like maintenance of band hall and music area and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. One really cool thing was we had a like weekly get stuff organized type day where we would go around through different rooms and make sure stands are all in the right place and the band has what they need to be functional. And also, what was it? Goodie bags for incoming women into the band programs to make sure that they feel welcome as they come in. Those were 2 like standout ones that we saw.
Nice. I like that. And I like that the first idea kind of sounds like your honey-do list that people get. It's like, fix the sink, paint the garage, stuff like that. So I like the idea of having kind of just a rolling list of things that you could be working on. Group 2 with Melissa, Morgan, Naja, and Naja in that group. What activities did you all have as ideas?
So one of my favorite ones was one that Melissa and her mom, who is also a sister, who was in our room. She said like a music parade where like we play like around a school or like for a school or like around the community, and it's like us giving like a parade like with our songs, and like people could have like signs and stuff. So I thought that was really cool. And then another one we talked about, a lot of them were like Focus on 5-esque, and we talked about like a high school band day, or what else did we say? Or like hosting a like concert for a middle school or high school. So yeah, we have fun.
I like that. Kind of talking about diversifying the service you do in the community. Love that idea. Next group with Aaliyah, Destiny, Katie, and Serena.
So we had some ideas. We had like instrument cleaning, cleaning the band room, cleaning uniforms, that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And then we also had like a karaoke night and like a musical game night. Those were kind of fun. And then, as mentioned before, we had a few involving like visiting local high school bands or helping the bands with their band program and that kind of thing.
I love it. I love the idea of just doing the karaoke. Just hanging out with the band is something that, or even as a chapter, it's something fun that you can do. People need to relax and let loose, let our hair down, because you have to put your hair in a big bun underneath your shako or whatever. So let your hair down and just hang out is a great way to, you know, add a different type of service that's pretty simple to do too. So the next room had Jordan, Corey, Christina, and Shelby.
Yeah, so we actually had a lot of great ideas from all of us, especially because we all come from very different chapters. So one of them that Corey came up with was um, campus cleanup, where all the organizations on her campus actually come and clean up the entire campus. So they all like get represents a field purpose 5. Because it's everyone getting together to do one really good thing. Another thing that other people brought up was Relay for Life, which actually can have a lot of musical elements added to it, which also represents Purpose 5. Another thing was Girl Scouts, which represents Purpose 1 and Purpose 3 for us, where often we, at least for our Chapter 8 row, we get asked to help Girl Scouts with their music badge, and they'll give us like criteria of how to go about it. But there are many creative ways on how we can explain music and leadership and empowering women through that, especially. And then another one was play with high school bands, especially. It's really exciting for like younger students to be playing with those who have been in ensembles and bands before for a little longer. And it's actually really encouraging. So.
Very nice. I love all of those ideas. So the next group had Candy, Hayden, Katie in it as well. I saw y'all put your notes in the chat, and some of those are really great ones as well. Was it music showcase, marching band survival kits, motivational posters in practice rooms? Also very low cost, but also very high impact, just by showing out some nice, you know, little pretty thing while you're in the bathroom or in your practice room. I remember a chapter they had like a weekly newsletter that they put in the stalls of the bathroom so people can know about activities going on in the music department, and also just some interesting factoids. And so a very simple service again, but something that has a really big impact. The next group had Dominique, Gia, and Teja, is that right? Or Tasia?
Tasia, yeah.
Tasia. Sorry, Texas. I was like, Teja, like Tejas.
We came up with a musical therapy session to like you know, define like the different feelings when it comes to like different types of music. And we could do like, if the activity was with kids, we could do like a painting session where we'll play different kinds of music, and then the kids will like paint like how they feel like what to the music. And then we also came up with like a red light, green light activity where like we'll play and then we'll stop, and then the kids will stop, and then when the music starts playing, the kids start dancing again. Things like that. Yeah.
Very nice activities. I like the spin on music therapy, kind of reaching into another sphere of music outside of just instrumental music, to kind of engage with your community that way. So after you've done a lot of work to, you know, brainstorming as a chapter with your director of bands and your community, a great way to really get your ideas into action is even just writing an event proposal, setting up your objectives, a detailed description, how many people you'll need, a budget, supplies, and even a timeline for completion. Some of these ideas, like, you know, practice room cleanup is not going to take a huge amount of work to put into a proposal, but if you're wanting to do something like repaint the whole entire school of music or build a new stadium for band practice, you're going to need a little bit more effort to be put into the planning phase. And so make sure you taking some of these steps to really put those ideas into action and to help this to be a well thought out idea. Weighing out the pros and cons of each proposed event. This is a great way for your chapter to work together and kind of agree on an activity that you'd want to add in as new service. And this weighing the pros and cons is also a fantastic way to evaluate if an activity that you're currently doing has an opportunity to maybe go or stay. And then again, as you're creating and planning and you have this huge idea of huge list of activities that you could do or ideas, even taking those to your director of bands, because like Sammy said earlier, if you are wanting to do all the things and you're not doing all the right things according to your director of bands or your sponsor, you may have an opportunity to take that 100 ideas and whittle it down to that 10% that really matters.
In addition to the event proposal, really helping to outline before the event, what are all your needs and different elements like that, it's also a really good tool to use for after the event. Capturing all of the different elements in an event proposal can help share different lessons with the next officers. It can also be a really how-to guide. Eventually, if we all achieve our goals correctly, we will graduate and leave the chapters. We want to leave the chapters as much as we don't want to leave the chapters, and finding some way to document what it is that you did. Is there a contact with the local Girl Scout troop that you always reach out to, or with the local band program that has worked with you guys for years? Capturing things like that in an event proposal can really help with officer transitions and share different successful activities for the next year. Another thing that's important to do after the event is to capture evaluations. What do people think about it? Whether it's a project you've been doing for years or a brand new project, I think it can be really helpful to gather insights from the chapter. That might be able to help you tweak the event to do it in a better way, and it might help you figure out if it's not necessarily something that was worth the investment, and so you wouldn't recommend continuing it for the future. I would try to find different ways that you can collect feedback. Having an evaluation sheet allows for members who may not necessarily come up to you in person to share their thoughts. It allows them a chance and space to give feedback. Another thing you can do is discuss the activities as a chapter, and in your chapter meeting, say, we just did that. Are there any initial thoughts, feelings? I think also that you can kind of take an opportunity to debrief an event and ask, was there any big lessons that we learned or big feels that we have that we want to talk about? Things like that can really be helpful to reflect after the event.
Absolutely. So in conclusion, being creative and diversifying the services that you're providing as a chapter and the programs that you do will have a huge impact on your current chapter, your membership as a whole, and even the future of your chapter and this organization. Make sure that as you're doing this process of evaluating and collecting information and brainstorming and implementing activities and following up on them, that everyone's ideas are taken seriously and equally. I definitely have seen in chapter and even through some research that member engagement at points does matter. Like what point of that engagement is based on if they feel as though their voice is heard and they're taken seriously and equally to other people. So if you're the chapter president, making sure that you're listening to a membership candidate who has a new idea, or even a new active member who may have an idea of how to do a project differently, or a new idea as well. I always like to say this whole crazy Tau Beta Sigma thing is a team project, and should work together as a chapter on this process of evaluating and brainstorming. It's not the executive council's job to decide on which projects you're going to do. I think it's a great practice, again, making sure everybody's voice is taken seriously and heard, and do this as a team in creating and evaluating and making new projects for your chapter. And always evaluate ways that you can do your service or activities in a new or different way. My biggest thing for Tau Beta Sigma right now is doing things bigger, better, and bolder than before. If something that you're doing isn't having the impact that you want, it's not hitting those 3 Bs. And so you definitely have an opportunity to evaluate it and how you can do it a little differently to make it more impactful and relevant for your bands. And then stay focused on your chapter's goals, but be flexible in the way that you reach it. As you can see here, especially it says, especially in the COVID-19 things, you definitely still have an opportunity to serve your band in some way. You may not be able to actually bring all your band members into a room, a classroom, and do a study session, but you can offer something like this, bringing them into Zoom and, you know, maybe even using that breakout feature like we did, say, oh, if you need help with music theory, we're going to send you group 1, you know, this, that, and the other, and kind of helping and being flexible with the way that you complete your activities. And then over all of this, have fun. Your service projects and programs should be enjoyable as well as productive. Just because it's tradition doesn't mean it's non-negotiable. So make sure that you are, you know, again, evaluating if that traditional activity is something that is still making your chapter excited about the service and Tau Beta Sigma. And if not, then again, go through the process of evaluating, brainstorming, thinking of ways that you can change it or replace it with something else that's more valuable. Thank you all for coming. Does anybody have any questions? I'm gonna go ahead and stop sharing. If you have a question, feel free to either raise your hand, use the raise a hand function, or go ahead and just unmute yourself and ask.
I'll also throw out there that you all came up with 70 ideas for service, and that was in roughly 3 to 5 minutes. So collectively, way to go. And I hope that's some encouragement that you guys can take some of these things back to your chapters and be able to execute more and even in a more specific way to your context. Also, does anybody want to know the winning breakout group?
What's the winning breakout group?
It was Candy, Hayden, and Katie. Yay!
They did have a lot of ones.
They had 13 ideas in that short of time. So way to go.
Awesome. Any questions?
What do you, yeah, questions. How do you guys feel about the service at your chapter? Do you guys feel like it's really good? Do you feel like it's could use some more creativity, a little oomph, or maybe you feel like it's really overwhelming? Feel free to unmute yourself and share a little about how you feel.
I feel that considering where my chapter has been in the past, we've very much stepped up our service in the past year. I know one concern we have is in looking at our chapter, only 2 of our members out of 14 are not music majors, and they very much want more people that aren't music majors to be involved in our activities because our bands aren't made of just music majors. And so I was wondering if there was any way we could go about doing that so we could have more non-music majors involved.
That's a good question. And that kind of actually goes more in line with like the membership track and how you can do recruitment for that. But I think it's definitely as you're creating programming, as we were talking about earlier, thinking of services that, and this sounds weird, services that serve your chapter, if that makes sense. If your chapter members aren't, if you know that, not your chapter, if you know that some of your members may find more value in traditionally music-based activities, being that, you know, Coda or crescendo project or something like that, playing their instrument, incorporating programming like that for your chapter, or also looking at, for people who may not be going into the music field, going into maybe having a women in music speaker who had a, you know, a background in women in music and education, women and all that's, not women, is a background in music, but maybe has taken her degree and uses her music in a different way, and can be able to share more information on like leadership and professionalism to help serve another demographic of your community and your potential members. And I even like the idea of like, our national programs are a good way for members to, because I know when I was in high school, I did a lot of community service. It may not have been directly with band and stuff, but it's a great opportunity to kind of showcase that part of Tau Beta Sigma as a part of recruitment, that we don't just serve our bands, but we also go out to the community and make an impact in that way. And also I like to do my shameless plugs on the different things that we have planned for DCL Coda. Tomorrow, there is a workshop about recruitment. I think it's called What Game of Thrones Can Teach You About Member Recruitment. Very enticing name, very good workshop. Yeah, what can you learn from Game of Thrones about recruitment? So, and that can definitely help you to kind of develop your programming through, you know, your potential or current membership, kind of create mixed together that way.
There's also some service projects that sometimes it's helpful to have somebody who's not a music major. When I was a student, I was not a music major. I actually didn't play in concert bands. I was in color guard for most of my time in college. And I helped out with our receptions a lot. So we had a lot of our music major and just members who were in the concerts who would be playing in the concert. And I would sometimes help out backstage. I would help out with cake and punch. What's the word for the reception? I was like, oh no. Anyway, reception afterwards, things like that. So sometimes it can be helpful there's still very music involved service that you can do for non-majors and people who don't necessarily want to maybe not play their instrument in front of people, but want to be there to support. Are there other questions or thoughts on your service as we wrap up?
Please feel free to reach out to either myself or Sammy Kinnison. We're both, our bios and email addresses are on the TBS website, or hit us up on Facebook, and we'll be able to and glad to answer any other questions that you have about service projects and idea generation. Of course, you can always reach out to your district VPSPs as well as your other members of your district council and your district counselors for any questions that you have and some more ideas. And as a reminder,